Welcome back. Requested video regarding memory. RAM is primary memory, stores program data that is currently in use by the CPU. One thing you need to remember about RAM, it is volatile. When you turn off the power, the data is wiped, all the data is cleaned off. Another memory type you need to think of is ROM, stores permanent boot up instructions, cannot be overwritten, it is non-volatile, meaning you turn the power off, the data is still there. RAM only retains the information when the power is on, and ROM, when the power is on or off, the data stays. Now, virtual memory. This is temporary memory when RAM has no more space. The secondary storage is used to store data that might be needed. So let's simulate the RAM is full, then we move things over to virtual memory, which is on the secondary storage device, hard drive or SSD, which is much slower than RAM. And when things are needed, it is taken back from secondary storage put into RAM, which the CPU can then access, and data is swapped over and over again as and when needed. When RAM is no longer full, we don't need secondary storage anymore. We don't need to use the virtual memory, only when RAM is full. And then because secondary storage cannot be accessed directly by the CPU, it has to move data back to the RAM where the CPU can access it, and then move things over that are not needed currently. So there's a lot of data swapping going on. It slows down the computer and performance can drop. The only way to reduce the use of virtual memory is buying larger RAM or more RAM. Now, we need to be able to compare the three storage types, solid state, magnetic, and optical drive. Which one's faster? Let's look at the transfer race. SSD is way faster, then hard drive second, and then DVD optical is third. So these are the three main storage types that you need to know about, and you also need to be able to compare between all three, the capacity, speed, portability, durability, reliability, cost per GB. So SSD usually wins in most category. It's the fastest, it's highly portable, it has no moving parts, durability very high, reliability very high, but it is the most expensive, and capacity is high, but not as high as HDD magnetic storage devices. So in most cases, SSD is the most reliable. Hard drive capacity is usually, the magnetic hard drives are usually the highest, but it has low portability. It has moving parts, the read-write head that can break if it's moving. Durability is low. It has discs that platter discs that can get damaged. Reliability is medium, but it can be the cheapest, especially magnetic storage, magnetic tape, a hard drive. SSDs and hard drives are becoming closer and closer in price, but hard drives are normally the cheapest. DVD, usually lowest capacity, speed quite slow, portability quite high, but they can get scratched. Durability again quite medium, I would say. Again, can be scratched, and medium in all other aspects. Next component is the unit converter. So you need to be able to understand that there are 4 bits in a nibble, and there are 2 nibbles in a byte, so 8 bits in a byte, and then it goes up in the thousands. So there's 1,000 bytes in a kilobyte, 1,000 megabytes, 1,000 kilobytes in a megabyte, 1,000 megabytes in a gigabyte, and 1,000 terabytes in a gigabyte. And you need to be able to convert each one. So if you want to convert gigabytes to megabyte, you times it by 1,000, times it by 1,000, going up to kilobytes, down to kilobytes, and times by 1,000 again to kilobytes. If you want to convert bytes to bits, you need to times it by 8. So there'll be 8 million bits in a gigabyte. 8 billion bits, sorry. let's say we do megabytes here, and we got 1,000 megabytes. If you look here, to go up to a kilobyte, to down to a kilobyte, you need to times it by 1,000. There's 1,000 kilobytes in a megabyte, and then times it by 1,000 again. Yeah, so each one times, and then to go up to a gigabyte, you divide it by 1,000. That's converting units. So 1 kilobyte equals 1,000 bytes, base 10. Now some exam questions. Let's look at virtual memory. Describe how virtual memory allows computer to continue operating when the RAM is full. Let's look at a low mark student answer. So this student got 0 marks. The computer uses the hard drive to get extra memory space. This means it can store more files and programs, and everything keeps running. A lot of students talk about the need for virtual memory as if primary storage is full. We need to give it a bit more detailed and technical answer. Can't be vague. Extra space storage rather than mechanism of memory management. You've got to talk about why it's needed. Never mentions the swap or RAM state. Let's look at a full mark 4 out of 4. When the RAM is full, you need to mention this. The OS, the operating system, moves data that is not currently in use from RAM to secondary storage. This frees up space in RAM for the computer to load the next instruction. When the data on the hard drive is needed again, it is swapped back into RAM. Correctly identifies the trigger. RAM is full. 1 mark, the location, secondary storage, and the action moving at least used data onto the hard drive as in the virtual memory, and the swap mechanism, swapping it back when it is needed. Let's look at another question. Compare RAM and ROM. State one similarity or one difference between them. RAM is for memory, and ROM is for the BIOS. They both store things. Bit vague, but 1 mark achieved for that inside the computer. RAM is fast, ROM is permanent. Correctly identify that both store things. However, fast is very vs permanent is too vague for two clear differences. Too vague. This is what a lot of students write a lot. Fast, easier. You can't use. Try to avoid these words as much as possible. Try to give more technical definitions. Similarly, is that a similarity is that they are both types of computer storage. Types of primary storage. One difference is that RAM is volatile, loses data when the power is lost, while ROM is non-volatile. Another difference that RAM can be read from and written to, whereas ROM is read-only. Similar, 1 mark for similarity, 1 difference, volatility, 2 difference, 2 read-write access. That's a perfect 3 out of 3. Let's look at another question. A company is choosing a storage device for their office backup. They need 4 terabytes of storage, and it must be cost effective. Recommend and justify suitable storage device. I recommend an SSD because they are very fast and won't break if they drop them. This is good for an office where people might be moving things. 0 out of 3 marks. SSDs are expensive per GB, making them a poor choice for high capacity office backups where cost is a factor. So must be cost effective is in the question, and it's office backups. Let's look at a answer that got 3 out of 3 marks. I recommend a magnetic hard disk drive. It provides a high capacity 4 terabyte for relatively low cost per GB compared to an SSD. Since the device is for the office backups, the slower speed compared to SSD is less important than cost. Recommends HDD, justifies based on high capacity, and justifies based on low cost per GB. Plus a backup, you won't be needing to move it around. It will be stored somewhere safely. Device characteristics. State 1 similarity and 2 differences between RAM and ROM. They both store data. We've had these questions already. I'm just going to move on to the next one. Portability. A photographer needs a storage device to carry the high resolution photos while traveling. You always see these type of questions when there is a profession and something about usually someone that's moving or staying still, and recommend a suitable type of secondary storage to justify their choices. I recommend SSD because it's really fast and very cool. It will make the computer better. Recommends SSD, 1 mark. Justification is non-technical, is too vague. Let's look at a free marker. I recommend solid state storage. It is durable, has no moving parts, which is essential for travel. It's a photographer who's traveling. Okay, so they've mentioned that. It's also very portable and lightweight, making it easy for the photographer to carry. 1 mark for recommendation. 1 mark for justification, no moving parts, durability, and justification, another justification for portability. So that covers all 3 points. This is a quick video on memory. Next video coming up.